Okay, so I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and I was either going to write all this down somewhere in one of my books or something somehow, or full future presentations or something connected to my original first video about the truth about English, where I listed this one really important line, one of the most important lines in the entire video, or slam poetry, which was, "We languish in our languid language, and anguish ever since the ancient times of the Anglish Angus, and the phony phonetic phonics of the ancient Phoenician Phoenix." Again, the etymology of English actually comes from Anglish, essentially from Anglish, or what was known as Angelish, particularly ultimately from the Proto-Indo-European root of hang, which we can liken to hang, which is the root of hang, and it means narrow, constricted, or compact, narrow, constricted, tight. Hello everyone, my name is Cullen Smith. I'm a published author. Today I would like to introduce you all to my brand new published book, The Hive Mind Invasion of Civilization, a compendium of esoteric science, symbolism, and universal secrets. If you'd like to purchase this book, you can head over to my brand new website that I've set up at liftingtheveil.tv, and I will see all of you there. And so again, English comes from Anglish, which comes from essentially the land from the Angles, the land of the Angles, the land they inhabited was probably because it was shaped like a fish hook, which is where we get angle from, which is linked to angle, which is where we get fishing as angling, because the angle of the fish hook is where we get the word angling from, is from the angle of the fish hook, because an angle is to fish with a hook, which is from the suffix Proto-Indo-European root of onculo, which is what gives us the root of ankle, which, because angle is linked to ankle, because ankle comes from the angle of the ankle itself, which is from the Proto-Indo-European root of ang, or ankh, because an ankh is to bend, which is where we get the Egyptian prominent symbol, which composes itself of four angles, prominent sharp angles, with the most prominent bend, with the bend hook, or in other words, the symbolically known as the ru, or which is the bend. It's the hook. It's the ankle, made, so it gets its name from the ankle, from the angles that compose it. And again, ankh to bend, aglu corner, Lithuanian anka literally means loop. So again, the ankh is it's the looped, it's the angled loop, linked with angum, limb, or ankle, again, hook. And so this gets us into the ultimate root etymon of all of these words, which is the ang, which by declension and by sound shift and vowel shift all throughout the different cultures and languages of the world, all throughout history, it shifts from ang to ang to eng to ing to ong to ung, and these are all the same phonetic, essentially the same phonetic enunciations: the ang, the eng, the ing, the ung, the ang, the ankh. All the same, just very similar vowel shifts, and how the word shifts and translates over time and transforms over time. And so the root of ang, again, ultimately comes from Proto-Indo-European ha'ang, meaning narrow, which is Proto-Indo-European ha'ang, meaning to constrict, which gives us German eng, which is narrow. And we have this essentially becomes the word hang. And again, a hang is you hang from a hook, or you hang from a noose. A noose is an ankh, a noose is an angle, it is a bend, it is a loop. It is a noose from which you hang, and when you hang, this creates great pain or great anguish. And anguish is from this same root of ang. And again, anguish is extreme pain, either of the body or the mind, excruciating distress, which is linked to Germanic cognate of anger, and from Latin anguista, narrowness, difficulty, distress. And again, this is the narrowness of the breath, or the narrowness, the shallowness of breathing, the shallowness, the constricting. And we cover this thoroughly in the Symbols of Power Part 3 film about when we covered the etymology of sphinx and sphinx, and to asphyxiate, and the actual physical dynamics, the physics of constriction and contraction and strangling, and the physical dynamics of the torus field of constricting. And implosion, of constricting, and so then we have the similar root of ang, which is with the e, angi, anga, which is from Old French anga, from late Latin angelus, which is the root of angel, or Greek angelos, which literally means angel. So it's the literal etymological connection of angle to angel. Of French, anga is angel. And again, from Greek angelos, which is messenger. It literally means angel. Messenger is an angel of the gods, an angel of the heavens. And this is how, in astrotheology, the true origins and the true meaning of an angel, again, literally means messenger. Essentially a messenger from heaven, a messenger of God, if you will. But so this is how literally in astrotheological terms it comes from the zodiacal wheel, which is composed and comprised of specific angles of the zodiac, different degrees and the angles of the measures of the planets, which are the messengers of God, the messengers of the heavens, which are the planets themselves, the Elohim, the angels, the 7 archangels, which are the actual planets in the solar system. So the measure of the angles, the specific angles of light, reflecting from these planets and from the stars and from the heavens, the measuring of these angles is divining the message of God, or the message of the future. You are divining an inspirational message from the heavens. So you are literally translating the language of the angels, the language of the angles of light, which influence our behaviors, our thoughts, our consciousness. And in Old English, ang literally again means narrow, straightened, also vexed, troubled, sorrowful. And so again, vexed, the root of English, of anglish, contains the etymologies of vexed, which vexed again actually means annoyed, irritated, or distressed. Also much debated, discussed, or disputed. So we're talking about the confusion, the bewilderment. To be vexed is to be hexed, to be cursed, essentially, to be spellbound, to be perplexed. And also linked to anga or angle is also demon, is also connected to this word. So you have the duality, the polarity of angels and demons, and we'll get into this in just a second. But so again, this links us to etymologically from Latin angulus, meaning again angle, and again which is phonetically cognate with angelus, or Greek angelos, which is again angel. So an angle is literally an angle. And it literally means a curvature, or the measure of an angle, the measure of a bend or a joint. From Proto-Indo-European hangulos, meaning joint. And Sanskrit anguri, meaning finger, toe. Because the finger or the toe is a curved joint. It is an angled joint, an angle, a hook, if you will. A joint, a crooked curve. From Greek ankylos, which is crooked or curved, just as the Egyptian crook is a curved hook, just as the ankh is a curved angle. And so the Latin angulus, it also transforms through the dissension of language over time. It transforms through Romanian ungi, so angulus becomes ungulus. Again, ang, ing, ung, they are all the same roots, just different vowel shifts over time, different declension or different shifts of sound over time. So Latin angulus again becomes Latin ungulus, which again comes from the same Proto-Indo-European root of hunk, of hunk. Again, so not hunk, but hunk, meaning to bend, but bow, curve. Cognate with Latin uncus, which is a hook. Proto-Germanic angio, meaning ing, linked with Sanskrit ankus, again a bend or a hook, or a bend or a curve, a finger ring. So the ungulus is literally where we get ungula, which is a claw, it's a hoof, it's a nail, a claw, or a hook, if you will. A claw is a curved, a hooked claw. It's something that you hook something with, a fish hook. It is a hook which causes great pain or great anguish. Great ungula causes great anguish, which creates great pain. So this is where we get ungulates, which are hoofed animals, because we're talking about their hoof, or in other words, their hooked ankle, the ankle of a hoofed animal. So the angle, the claw, the hoof, the ungula, the ungulus, the ungulus, the unguis, nail, claw, hoof, which this links us to the etymology of a hangnail, which a hangnail causes great pain and great distress, discomfort, anguish, if you will. Anguish or anguish is again essentially narrowness, difficulty, distress, extreme pain, difficulty of either the mind or body, excruciating distress, again linked with anger, with Old Norse or Old High German anger. Anger, grief, pain, trouble, affliction, vexation, in other words, confusion of self, confusion of the mind, of the body, affliction, sorrow, troubled, from ang, from, again, all from the same Proto-Indo-European root of hang, narrow, tied together, Latin ango, to squeeze, to choke, to vex, fear, anxiety, pain, nightmare, avestin, angra, destructive, Greek anko, meaning I squeeze, I strangle. So again, we're talking about the constricting, the strangling, and the great anguish, the great pain caused by hanging of the noose, of the angular bend. And anguish, or anguish, gives us anguis, which is literally Proto-Indo-European hangis, angis, meaning snake. Old Prussian angis, Old Armenian, Old High German unk or unko, meaning snake. Snake, serpent, or dragon. Because being bitten or being constricted or strangled by a constricting python or being bitten by the serpent causes great pain or great anguish, causes narrowness of breath, you can't breathe, it paralyzes the lungs, causes constriction of the lungs, breaks your chest cavity, breaks your bones, strangles you to death. But either whether it's by the neurotoxin or whether it's by the toxin of the venom or whether it's by the constriction of the looped angular muscles of the ang, of the unk, the anguis. So again, the Latin anguis of the snake again connects to Latin unguis, which is the nail, claw, the hoof. And it connects to the snake by the nail, the claw, the hoof, because Latin unguis is linked etymologically to Lithuanian nagas. And although the etymology of nagas literally means fingernail, a claw, a nail, or a claw is a hook, it's a talon. Again, the hooked angle, the ankle of the finger or of the toe, of the appendage, the hooked curve of the appendage. But so it's not etymologically linked to Sanskrit nagas, but it is directly linked to Sanskrit naga because Sanskrit naga literally means snake or serpent, which again is a member of a semi-divine class of creatures associated with the form of the very large snake, associated with water. So again, we're talking about which were essentially the opposite of the Hindu devas, which were essentially the angels, if you would liken them to angels. Whereas the asuras or the nagas were essentially the demon aspects. So in other words, they're talking about the duality, the polarity of the same thing, a semi-divine class of beings. And we're not talking, don't get me, I am not talking literal here. I am not talking an actual race of ancient reptilian beings or angels and none of that. We get so much deeper and so much more symbolic, relating this to actual reality on this channel, in my full films and in my full presentations and in my books. So do not take this literally. I'm not referring to this literally. I'm not saying that there is a divine angel or demonic language that is controlling humanity. That's not what I'm saying at all. As we could refer to the biblical reference of let us go down and corrupt their language, that they may not understand one another, which was said literally by the Elohim in the Bible, who conspired to go down and divide humanity's language from one universal root language, which we are covering here right now, the universal root meanings of how they all mean the same thing, and dividing it into infinite different, just vexing and perplexing and confusing roots that all share the same core tenets, the same core meanings and values, and similar essences, despite being from different etymologies and from different cultures and different time periods all over the world. It's the thread that weaves them all together that we are talking about here. And so again, the roots of ang, ung, ong, ing, etc., gives us the Old Norse and Proto-Germanic ing, the Proto-Germanic root and Old English roots of ing come from Proto-Germanic ingus. Again, anguis, unguis, unguis, and Proto-Germanic ingus, which in this version here, I guess this is a specific author. I'm not sure who the author is, but esoterically links ingus to the seed or the god Ing, the rune of isolation or separation, in order to create a space or a place where the process of transformation into higher states of being can occur. So in other words, we're talking about what we've covered in the full Symbols of Power film series, the transformation, the alchemical transmutation from root to crown, the Kundalini serpent ascension of the serpent energy, the life energy, the constricting energy within us from root to crown. The alchemical transformation, the rune of gestation and internal growth. Ingus is associated to the seed, again, the fertility, the seed of nature, the growth energy, the transformation, earth god, stored energy, gestation process, male sexuality, agriculture. On the psychic levels, revealing internal growth, personal development, the power of suggestion, which is what this whole presentation is about, the power of suggestion or influence, the inner child wholeness. So, these are more, subjective interpretations. These aren't exactly, what it actually comes from. But yes, it does come from ing, meaning the state of being, the state of mind. The ing, the state of a thing. And so this is actually a really great write-up by, I guess, the author is Tyriel. I'm not sure who this is, but it is a very great write-up, actually a full description of the ing, of the esoteric symbolic meaning of the ingus, the potential energy that must accumulate gradually in storage before being released as a single surge of energy. It represents the process of a mental seed or desire implanted by the conscious mind into the subconscious for incubation and gestation, for it to later re-emerge and sprout forth and to grow, just as the seed does from the ground, later to emerge as a new creation in your life affairs. Ingus governs the process of seed into catalyst, and thus self-sacrifice of one form to bring forth into a new form, a new being, and the characteristics inherited because of this transformation. Thus, the Ingus contains within its lore the true meaning of self-sacrifice. Such as sacrifice occurs when one form is called upon to die so that a newly evolved form may begin to grow or emerge from that. This is the symbolic alchemical transformation of the phoenix, of the death and rebirth, the alchemical process of distillation and transformation and transmutation. So this is one of the cornerstone concepts that is known in the male mysteries. To die for something such as a cause or an idea such as freedom, a universal theme in the warrior traditions, is thus connected to the energies of Ingus. There is great wisdom in containing an analogy between this fundamental act of nature and the mystical act of generation. The failure of a magical operation is often caused by the lack of the operator letting go of some form of the past form or manifestation, so that a newly desired form can be born from that. All humans live in the past to some degree or another, but one must apply the laws of nature, which calls for death of the old in order to bring about the transformation of the new into new forms. So that's essentially what he writes up. A brilliant esoteric write-up on the symbolism and the etymology of Ingus, which is great. And again, the actual scholarly etymology of the Ingus from Ingwen, Old English, Old High German Ingwen, again from the Ingwens, again linked to Angwin, Ingwen, Ungula, and all of these, the same similar root meanings. So this gets us into, again, we can find here in the actual scholarly interpretations. Here we find Ingmar, and this links us to, again, always to Professor Tolkien's brilliant works of linguistics, and this links us to what he had. This brings us into what he had written about as Angmar, as well as Angband. And although his legendarium likens the etymology to his Elvish Sindarin language, which he has the root of Ang, meaning iron. So Angmar literally means iron prison, whereas Angmar literally means iron house. So Angmar literally means iron home, whereas Angband literally means iron prison. And it's interesting when we look up the details of Angband, and how its qualities and properties, although his actual etymology of Ang is essentially it's not linked to the actual real world etymologies of Ang. It is in his legendarium, he uses the symbolism of the location to actually incorporate the real etymology of what Ang actually means. So you can find this in the description of what Angband actually is. So Angband was a subterranean stronghold under the 3 volcanic mountains of Thangorodrim, the largest mountains of Middle-earth, before the Great Gate, in other words, a passageway, usually a narrow passage or a valley between a passage of mountains. Before the Great Gate, there was a somber court area flanked by frightening cliffs and walled towers of a great battlement. Through the gate, there was a long, great tunnel leading to a labyrinthine pyramid of stairs to corridors, tunnels, and smithy chambers. So this is very symbolic. It goes back to ancient Egypt and the Greek legends by, I forget, what was it, Herodotus, historian Herodotus, had written about the labyrinthian passageways underneath the Great Pyramid of Giza. And so Tolkien is drawing on this and referring to a labyrinthian pyramid of stairs and corridors beneath Angband, beneath the narrow passage of the gateway. So it does etymologically link through the symbolism to the etymology of Ang, meaning narrowness, constricting. So that went way, way off track, and this is going to be a whole different video, could be a whole film presentation in and of itself, but I wanted to include that because I wanted to get into the deeper meanings and the deeper roots and linguistic symbolism of English itself, of Anglish, of angelish, and all the symbolism of the influences of the serpent, of the tongue, the physiology of the human being, and the processes of nature itself. So I wanted to go deep into including all that, and I could go so much deeper into all of this, but I'm trying to give you a scathing surface overlay and a brief summary of what we're getting into here on this channel. So make sure to subscribe if you guys appreciate this type of stuff, and if you want to go much deeper in future films.
Okay, DNA itself is essentially its DNA is composed of music, of vibration. It is composed of not just chemical elements, but what composes that spiral helix is essentially it's the same structure that all of nature is composed of, and it is that spiral phi ratio fabric of nature, that mathematical pattern of nature that creates not just the DNA, but the DNA is the language of cellular communication. It is how our cells in our body communicate with each other. And so DNA is literally, and modern science has proven that DNA is literally programmed by not just by words, because words are nothing more than sound or vibratory frequency. So DNA is programmed and reprogrammed essentially by light, by sound, by frequencies, and not just by words, by frequencies itself, by tones, by certain vibratory resonances. And the reason why is because just like anything in nature, when we get into cymatics, any medium, or in other words, any medium of propagation, such as air, water, rock, any type of substance that has form or structure to it is influenced by vibration. It is composed of vibratory sound and frequency. And so you can change the form and the structure and the pattern of that medium by changing its vibratory frequency, by changing its rate of oscillation, by how fast or how slow it vibrates. And you were talking about how the different languages of the world, you can travel anywhere around the world, and music is essentially it's a universal language. It's a phenomenon that we all know and we all love, and we all speak these. We have different tastes in music, of course, but it's the fact that music is so influential over our moods, over our emotions, our state of mind, our state of being, which ultimately leads to our state of health. So it's how music itself is literally so intrinsic to to what we experience in nature itself. And so back to our DNA, how the language of cellular communication is by the genetic expression. So our genes communicate to our cells how to program. It's the programming that tells our cells how to operate. It tells proteins what to produce and what to make. So it tells proteins what to do, what tasks to perform. Genes will upregulate and downregulate depending on epigenetic factors. In other words, our lifestyle behaviors, what we think, the thoughts that we think, the words that we speak, and the music that we listen to. Basically, everything that we experience in life is influential in controlling our genetic expression. And this is one of the main modern revolutions of science, is the study of epigenetics, and how sound and words and vibratory patterns and frequency literally it's not just what controls our DNA, but it is literally what our DNA is made of. Our DNA is a mathematical phi ratio pattern that is originally the true language of communication. And we know this because I'm going to be showing this in many of my future films and presentations as well. I'm writing this for part of the main factor of the new release of one of my books that I'm trying to compile and trying to write, is how the language of mathematics, a form, a frequency of DNA, of phi ratio patterns, is essentially, it's one of the most intrinsic forms of communication by body language. In other words, by what gives us our shape, what gives us. In other words, the ancients considered beauty. They considered the phi ratio to be the foundational pattern of beauty, and they considered it to be the good and the beautiful. So they considered what was beautiful to also be equated to being good, and what was beautiful was considered to be healthy, because to be healthy means to be whole, and to be whole means you're not fragmented into many different pieces. You are one unified holistic structure, one unified holistic form. And through the phi ratio, this is what we consider to be beautiful, is the ratio of harmony in nature, such as the flower of life in sacred geometry, the structural pattern of a sunflower, or of many different plants in nature. They grow in this phi ratio pattern, in this phi ratio structure. And so does the human body. So the human body is literally composed of this language of nature. And so that is ultimately, one of the most core foundational.
Cullen Smith, this is Lifting the Veil. You can find all of my full books, presentations, videos, films, articles, posts at subscribestar.com/liftingtheveil. Patreon has suspended this work and my account and income stream for this content. So if you are a supporting patron, then please, I ask you to move your support over to subscribestar.com/liftingtheveil. And I have just established a completely free, uncensored, totally free speech social media platform that replaces Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, every other platform all in one on liftingtheveil.locals.com. You can download the Locals app and you can join our group and have totally free speech and totally uncensored, unrestricted content access. And there is also a ton of exclusive content, and I will leave the cited reference links in the description down below. So you can check that out for all of my full content, and I will see you guys in the next video. I rely solely on word of mouth, and the recommended algorithms are not recommending any of my videos or films anymore. My channel has literally been completely restricted, so I rely on your help by sharing my work around if you appreciate it, and leave me your comments. I definitely want to know what you have to share and what you have to think about all of this stuff, and I will see you in the next video.